It's been a while since we've done a live. Today we're going to be joined by Sunaina Somudevakar. She's the founder of WildLittleSociety, and we're going to be talking about how we use play to talk about meaningful conversations such as colorism. For those of you who are around, we have an amazing giveaway with Wild Little Society and Indigrow Kids. We have our Coco's Colors of India book, which has just been relaunched in the market. It's been gone for a while, and many of you have been asking us for it, and now it is back and it is better. It's in a lovely book. So I'm just going to flip through it as we wait for Sunaina to join us. As you can see, it's lovely colors. Hi, Sunaina.
Hi.
I was just kind of showing everybody the Colors of India book. I don't know if you've seen it yet either.
No,
so this is our Coco's Colors of India playbook. So it's been a while. It's been off the shelves, and it's about this beautiful little black crow whose friends say, "Come and play Holi with us today." And he says, "But what's the point? All the colors will get washed away and black I'll stay." And then he goes on this little self kind of discovery journey of exploring all the wonderful colors in the world, in India specifically, with the greens and the grays.
That's so nice.
You know, the whites of the Taj Mahal and the cows. We even got the pink of the Hawa Mahal. And he just basically goes on this beautiful journey all across India, and then eventually realizes that black is the color that he likes best because it's the color that makes him him. And then we've just added a fun with Coco section at the back with lots of conversations and play and things to do with your kids. And that actually brings us to the topic of today's live. So thank you so much, Sunaina, for joining us. Today we're gonna be talking about play and how we can use play to talk about colorism. For those of you who have just joined, this is Sunaina. She's the founder of WildLittleSociety, but I'm gonna let her talk a little bit about what she does.
So first of all, thank you for having me. I am a certified image consultant, and I was doing this for a little while. And then I just decided, after I had my son especially, I decided I wanted to work in the children's space, the kids space. So 2019 Christmas, so end of the year, was when I had my son, and we went into a global lockdown March of 2020. So, you know, I had a lot of time to just sit, and, you know, like we didn't, I wouldn't say sit, we were very busy considering we had no help all of a sudden. But I had a lot of time to really think about what I wanted to do. And since I was very sure I wanted to get into the children's space, and the Black Lives Matter movement was going on, it got me thinking about, you know, how the situation is in India as well. And I just somehow, I stumbled across this brand in the US that were making dolls for Black children, especially. And they were really beautiful. And when I started looking up, you know, what's available in India, I was really shocked that, you know, we still didn't have enough brown dolls. I mean, I do know that there are a few right now, but we're a predominantly brown country. And, you know, we still have mostly white dolls in our shelves, the toy shelves. So I thought, you know, maybe this is the space that I want to enter, and that's how I got into it.
And so tell me something, do you have any kind of like personal stories about colorism in general? Has it impacted your life in any way growing up?
Oh, of course. So just to take you back, my grandparents, my mom's parents, got married in 1950. And at that time, you know, my grandmother, my amama, I call her, amama was really dark, and my grandfather, who I, you know, I haven't met him. He passed away when he was quite young, so he was really fair, and so he was brought up in Malawi, Africa, and when he came down to India to pick his brides, my amama was not, you know, one of them, because she was dark and she, you know, potential bride. So he met everybody, and then he met her, and then he fell in love with her. So that was, I wouldn't say it was a scandal, but I mean, obviously, I think people just figured, you know, since he was fair and he was his potential groom, he had a good job, and, you know, he was good looking, very stylish. They would have wanted him to marry someone who was also fair. Um, Fast forward to my parents, who got married in 1980. Again, there were, my mom's is darker than I am, so there were a lot of, you know, potential grooms who were looking for brides, and people would openly tell my grandmother that, oh, your daughter's dark, so, you know, we can't even, you know, suggest her name to these people. And my dad is fair, and he had no issue whatsoever with, you know, color. Then you bring it down to, you know, so from 1980, they're happily married, you know, and then comes 2018 when I was getting married. So over here, I remember, you know, just before I got married, I decided to go and, you know, maybe like groom myself up a bit. So when I walked into the salon, and when I asked them, like, you know, oh, I told them, like, I'm getting married, you know, in a week or so, you know, I'd just like to groom myself a bit. And the suggestions were immediately, you know, you need to do this facial, it'll make you fairer, and, you know, your skin looks a certain way, you know, your hair, you need to straighten it. Every negative, they didn't know. I mean, I'm guessing they're trained to sell. So everything that they could, you know, sell in terms of, you know, straightening my hair, or whether it was like my skin, or whatever it be, you know, and but it all revolved around being a fair bride. Uh, and then in 2019, when I was about to have my son, I had a relative say, you know, what if your unborn baby takes the color of your amama, who was really dark? So there were two things though. So one thing was, it upset me because I loved my mama a lot. And growing up, I didn't see her as this dark person. I wasn't embarrassed by her or anything. I mean, she was really ahead of her times, and I really looked up to her. But at the same time, I understand the concern from the relative, because their main concern was, will this child get bullied? And I know children get bullied, you know. When I was young, I would hear girls say to, you know, other girls, oh, she's a blackie, you're so black, you know, and it wasn't a nice thing, you know. And I would find myself, because because Amama was so dark, I would find myself defending these girls, going, she's not black, she's brown, or, you know. And this was me being very young, like 8, 9 years old. So these are my stories, you know, when it's come to, you know, with regards to like colorism. And I do feel like I've not personally had situations where someone's, you know, not picked me for something, or someone's made fun of my color, or you know, any of that. But I do know it can be very cruel when someone is being made fun of, and, you know, what can you do? You're born with this color, like, you can't. I think it's unfair to expect people to like put on all these, you know, lotions and whatnot, and, you know, try really hard to become fair. Uh, Today, when I was just going through YouTube to look at some of the content, there was so much content on how to make your baby fair, something about beetroot juice, carrot juice, and it's so sad, you know, the pressure that parents have to make their children fairer. There's so much pressure on the child, and it's so unfair. So I really wanted to fill up that space and like change the narrative in terms of how children should, you know, feel about themselves. There's nothing about the color, but, you know, feel about themselves. Because I think more than anything, I think confidence is the most attractive quality they can have. So I work on that. Yeah.
No, so, and I was listening to your talk, and you're talking about the generational, for me, honestly, the word that comes to mind is trauma, right? Because it is generational. It's passed down from, generation to generation. And some part of it, honestly, can be attributed to our colonial past,
Yeah.
where, the fairer you were or the lighter your skin color, the more accepted into society that you would have been, right? And and somewhere that has kind of seeped into our consciousness, and it's become almost like cultural conditioning, right? So whether it's, when you're looking for a job, whether you're looking for a partner in life, or whatever
Yeah.
it is, suddenly the fairness becomes the criteria rather than any of the other merits that you may or may not have, right? And
All these matrimonial sections, it's filled
absolutely,
wanting
absolutely,
hair or a wheatish
yeah,
color bride, and it's so unfair.
yeah. And and the thing is that one thing about color, skin color rather, right, is that this idea that it is something that somebody can change. Firstly, that itself is a fallacy, right? We are born with a certain skin color, and that skin color has a very scientific reason behind it. It is the amount of melanin that you have in your body, and it's as simple as that. And actually, that melanin not just kind of distinguishes your skin color, but it also determines your hair color. It determines the color of your eyes. So it's all linked, right? And all of that is genetics. There's nothing that you can do about it. Over a period of time, it's evolved in such a way that there is a certain amount of melanin that you have in your body, and that melanin is actually what we at Indigrow call like a superhero product, right? Because it protects us from the skin to a large degree, and that's what we tell kids, that it's you have to think of it like a Superman or a superhero product, because it protects you from the skin. And that's where this idea of confidence comes in, because I think that for children, more than anything else, or anybody actually, we're basically human beings. We have evolved to be part of the herd, right? If you look at us from the time that we were hunters and gatherers and things like that, there was safety in numbers. There was safety in belonging to the group. And this idea that I don't fit in to the norm, or I don't fit into a certain demographic, you feel differentiated. You're made to feel like you don't belong. And that actually can be very upsetting to both child and adult, and especially so when you're a child, because it's difficult to process, it's difficult to have the tools to express what it is doing to you. So things like, so as parents, we may not actually go out and say that, oh, you're dark, but we will say things like, don't play in the sun.
Yes.
Automatically, or, oh, look how much you have tanned. By these small little kind of comments, where basically somewhere our own conditioning is passing on the message that being dark is not okay. If you become one shade darker, that's something to worry about. That's something to kind of address or change, and very honestly, on the flip side, and it's not like kids who are necessarily fairer, have won the lottery or anything like that, or that we don't carry any scars. Very honestly, if you look at someone like me, I would be on if in the Indian brown spectrum, I would be considered on the fairer side of it. And the fact is that I have my own share of trauma growing up as a child. So it's not like I got a free pass, because this sense of belonging to a group is used very, very widely. And as a child, it does affect you both, in different ways. So I remember an aunt, when I went to somebody's house, so my mom is a shade that's a bit more on the browner side, darker side than me. And she's my mom. I love her, and I love being, I want to feel like I belong to her.
Yeah.
But everywhere I went, people would be like, oh, how come you're so fair? What happened? And in that statement, I was 4 years old, right? In that statement, I felt like I did not belong to my mother. You know, I had people put powder, you know, in those days they would put talcum powder. So I had people put talcum powder on my face. And it was almost as if, you know, they were trying to ensure that I didn't lose my fairness, you know, and I hated it. As a 4-year-old, I felt that this was, you know, this was not a nice feeling. And I did not know how to express it. I did not know how to verbalize that. And I couldn't tell anybody. I couldn't tell my mother, because what if I make my mother feel bad?
Upset.
That other people were telling me these things, you know, or the fact that I'm South Indian. I remember, you know, growing up, my dad was in the defense, so we would travel around, and I was in Delhi, and people would say, "Oh, ye to Madrasi to nahi dikhti hai," you know, automatically, because all South Indians have a certain, you know, and I'm like, again, I'm being made to feel different. So I think the crux of it all, right, for a child, it doesn't matter what color you are. The minute we start to kind of make a child feel othered, to make a child feel like they don't belong, that they are not accepted for who they are, yes, that is detrimental to the child's confidence, their just the way in which they conduct themselves in social settings or social interactions. And I think that's where, you know, when we started chatting and we talked about what we're doing, the conversations that we're having through, you know, our books and games at Indigrow, or whether what you're trying to do with WildLittleSociety, I think that's where for us that common bond of how do we have these conversations with kids, right? Because it is a heavy conversation, let's be clear. And we all have our own baggage that comes into it. Like just in the last 10 minutes, we're sitting and sharing our own stories. And both of us have such strong stories and personal experiences, right? And it's heavy. And you don't necessarily want to pass that on to your child. You don't want your child to have the same baggage that you carried with you into adulthood. But at the same time, how do I have that conversation? You know, heavy for them.
How to have the conversation and keep the communication open.
Yeah.
You know, so that even if there are, you know, even if they're being made fun of in school, I think, you know, we should communicate open enough where they want to come home and tell us what's going on. Then, you know, we can probably help them with explaining like why so and so probably feels a certain way, or even as parents, maybe we can, you know, how do we get to being better versions of what our parents were, because they didn't have the means to understand a lot of what was going on as well. So, you know, do we allow our children, you know, now to go play in the sun, but explain to them why sunscreen is important, you know? And in today's time, we get sunscreen without the white cast, because I remember sunscreen back then was, you know, you're brown and then your face is white, yeah, because there's white cast, right? So now I think it's just about sort of educating the children and helping them understand that it is okay for them to go play in the sun. Because I know that even at home, if I'm going to be fine with letting my son go play, swim, or do whatever he wants to do out in the sun, chances are he might go to a friend's house and someone there might say something. So I won't be able to protect him all the time. But I think giving them the power to sort of make certain decisions, stand themselves and say, oh no, like, you know, I'm fine. I'm wearing sunscreen. I'm going to be playing in the sun, or I'm going swim. Because I remember, you know, when we were growing up, my girlfriends, one of their mom was very particular about her going swimming. And she kept saying, every time you go swimming, you're getting darker and darker, you know. And then she home, and then she yogurt, and then sandalwood, you know, all that stuff. And she was such a smart girl, you know, smart, you know, beautiful hair, like she was great. But the thing is, so much emphasis is put on color that you know, you start wondering if everything else is okay about you, and you know, if color is the, so basically what she did was only focus on color. So when she would get on the scooter and go to college, she would wear gloves that were all the way up to cover her face fully, you know, and cover her. That's how she would go to college. So I just feel like, you know, our generation can make an effort to switch things up, you know, explain to them that it's okay, you know, however, you know, you've been born, like, you know, if you're fair, if you're dark, like there's nothing wrong with that. End of the day, it's how you carry yourself, it's the confidence you have, you know, you can do really well in school, and you know, that's a good way for you to, like, you know, be popular. You can be great in sports, that's a great way for you to be popular. Or just be kind, you know, be the fun person, be kind, have a sense of humor, you know, that will also make you popular. Being mean can only take you that far.
Absolutely. And I think what's important and about the kind of tools that we are creating now in the market is that there are two things, right? When you have a doll, for example, that looks like you, right?
Yes.
Then, you know, you feel represented, you feel, you know, and that is a very powerful thing, right? Because there's role play, there's, you know, there's that social emotional connection that children make when they see representation, right? When we have books like Indigrows, where, you know, we have the tools and we have the conversation, we have the words that they can use. Like you said, you can't always protect them because they are going to have to go and fight their own battles. There is going to be that child in the playground who's going to pass a comment. There is going to be that auntie at the party who's going to say something, you know. And how do you equip your child to talk about it and not let it affect their armor, right? Because these comments do pierce, they do barb, and they hurt, right?
Yes.
And you want to kind of raise your child to feel confident even if somebody says something around them. And you want almost for your child to be educating the other person, saying, hey, you know, my color is because of melanin. I love my skin. You should love the color you're in.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And that comes through, you know, when we make it normal, we normalize it, we make it fun, we make it playful, and it just is. We're all different shades of brown. We're all different shades of different colors. Everybody is a color, you know, and that it's something that, you know, is just us. It's what makes us us.
Yes. And you know, like the WildLittleSociety tagline is every shade of brown deserves a crown, because it's, you know, brown isn't just dark brown. Brown can be the lightest shade of brown to the darkest shade of brown, you know. And I was speaking to a while back, I was speaking to a Punjabi friend of mine. So she's practically white. She's got green eyes, okay, and light brown hair. So she was saying,
sorry, I'm going to pause there, but that's a reflection of the lesser amount of melanin in her body. The green eyes and the brown hair, it's all related to melanin.
Yes, you know, and she was saying when she would, so 8th standard onwards, like, so 13 and above, like I was in Coimbatore. Before that, I was in Kuwait. So in between, during the Gulf War, my 2nd standard and 3rd standard, I had moved to Coimbatore for 2 years to study. So I had met her then, and then I met her next college. So she was telling, you know, she was like, you know, Sunaina, when in Coimbatore, people called me a white pig. Okay.
Wow.
And yes, a white pig. And she was speaking about how one of her ex-boyfriend's moms said, oh, she's so fair, she's like she's got a skin condition. Okay. And then she said when she go to Pune, where the madrasi has come down. Oh, all she wants to eat is idli and sambar. So she was like, it's like you mentioned, you know, there was no real identity, and there was this confusion of where does she really belong. There are so many things that we can do, you know, nowadays to help children. And I feel like back in the day, I recall there were times where, you know, people would make statements even about me, like down from Kuwait. I'd spend like, you know, 1.5 months like in the sun and playing, and I'm out the entire time. And then I would have comments where, oh, she becomes so dark, she wasn't fair when she came from Kuwait, you know. And at that time, it's when I think about, I think a small part of me have wanted my mom to stick up, you know, and say something. But back then, you know, you don't say anything because, you know, when someone, you know, is older and, you know, when they say something like that, you sort of just agree. But I've just reached a point where I'm like, no, like, I don't want to agree to that anymore. So I can totally see myself not being a very popular mom, but you know, I know my son's going to be small only for that. And, you know, time, like, the kids grow up so fast.
Absolutely.
Next 10 years, he's going to be standing up for himself. So I've got a very short window where I for him from time to time, and I intend to do so. So, you know, I mean, it's all the time. Either it's the color or the height, the weight, or the hair, or it's always going to be something. You can't make everyone happy, you know.
And these are all things that we are not in control of.
No.
Like, if you tell me that my attitude is bad, right, I can change that. I can work on it, right? If you tell me that, you know, I need to put in more effort towards, you know, my homework or tidying my room, or, you know, my tone of voice, all of these things I can put in effort towards. My physical features, my physical characteristics. I mean, what can I do? This is who I am. Right? So, you know, and I think that this is this idea that we find joy in who we are, and we celebrate and accept every aspect of ourselves. And how do we then pass that on to our kids and make it part of everyday life? Make it part, you know, it doesn't have to be a lecture. It doesn't have to be a conversation around, okay, let's sit down and talk about skin color. Let's sit down and talk about, you know, people making fun of your hair or your height. But we can, you know, through conversation, through play, bring it about, use touch points, use daily occurrences to have those conversations with our kids. And the other thing I think is that sometimes these thoughts or these messages need to be constantly reinforced. It's not something that is said only once, you know, because our kids will face different challenges and different issues at different points in time as they grow. So again, to keep using different opportunities that crop up to have the same message going in. And that also is how we talk to ourselves, and being mindful of that. And what are we passing on? We may be saying one thing to our child, but how much of that are we actually practicing on ourselves? And making sure that those two go hand in hand. You know, because
what we say to ourselves, and also how we speak about others in front of them. You know, there's no me trying to tell my son, you know, you should be kind, and, you know, you should be giving. And then, you know, it's my turn to do something, like, you know, I'm being mean. And so that's what he's going to see, you know. So very consciously, you know, be nice. Like, if I'm going to tell him, you know, compliment people a little bit more, like, it costs nothing to make someone smile. But if I practice that, and if he's not going to watch me do it, he's not going to really understand what I'm saying. You know, very small things that I do is, when we drive from our place to his play school, there are 2 ladies that clean our street. So every day we stop, you know, we put the window down, we say hello, you know, and my son is shy, but he still manages to, you know, pull up a smile. And they always, like, they're saying hi. And because of small things like that, he is going to grow up to be someone who's not, who doesn't look down, you know, who helps clean, you know, who, you know, is from time to time going to offer them a, you know, it's the small things, you know. And something that I really want to teach him is, you don't need to make a huge impact or a huge difference. I mean, if you can, that's great. But even things in and around the house, like, you know, be nice, help, you know, it's the small things that, you know, children can do to really make a difference. But that being said, you know, as far as my dolls are concerned, we did 2 shades of brown, a darker shade and a lighter shade. And I have had people say, oh, you're talking about brown dolls, but you've got a white doll. But no, it's not a white doll. It's still a lighter shade of brown, and it's to help children understand that you have both.
Yes.
A fair child could also play with a dark doll, because in real life she is also going to have dark friends at some point in her life, and the same with a dark child. You are going to have a fair friend at some point in your life. And it's, for me, even when it comes to the clothes of the dolls, I selected fabric colors based in tone, just to show children that you have fun with color. It's not that a dark child should only stick to certain colors. You can have a lot of color, because I have some friends of mine, like I have one friend in particular, very dark, and for years I've been telling him, why are you always wearing black? And he'd be like, no, because black looks good on me. But I'm like, no, you can try other colors.
Yeah.
His excuse is that he's colorblind. But it's, I to an extent I see where he's coming from, because you don't see much representation out there.
Yeah,
whether
absolutely.
it's movies, whether it's magazines.
And and unfortunately, this idea of being dark is all, like you said, it's almost like drab is equal to dark, and the this I so I love the fact that your dolls, for example, they're all so beautiful in their own right. And I remember having a conversation with you where you said, you spent hours trying to find like even the lip shades,
yes,
to match the color of the skin, and to make sure that each doll looked beautiful in their own right.
Yes, because it's, for the lighter shade, it's everything that I would picture in terms of, what the eyes, the nose, the lip color, all of that. Most of the time, I nailed it like within the first 2 to 3 times.
Yeah.
With the darker shade, I was just not getting it, because the lip color on the lighter shade would not match the darker shade. And then I thought about it and I was like, yeah, I mean, I have friends of mine who are really fair, and there are some lipsticks that don't look good on them but look good on me. There are some that look good on that don't look good on me but look great on them. So I had to think about it in that sense, and that's how I eventually managed to put together all 4 dolls. Have different smiles, they have different lip shades, and for me it was just as important to get the darker dolls to look as good as the lighter dolls, because a lot of times I've come across dark dolls somehow not looking as nice. And I wanted to show that these 4 are best friends, and they get along great, they love each other. And what I've been coming across of late is, maybe it's because I follow like all of these people, but on YouTube, what I've been coming across of late is there are these doll tests. Okay. And when you look at these doll tests, they often show a doll, a black doll and a white doll. And it's so sad, because they show this black doll and white doll to children and ask them to pick which is the bad doll, which is the nice looking doll, or the pretty doll, and then they conclude this session with which skin tone do you look like which one matches yours, and almost always it is the dark doll. So the children, I mean, it's so sad to watch these videos where the kids look so sad, because they've suddenly realized they've called the darker doll bad, they've said the fairer doll is pretty, and it's the realization of, I've just sort of put myself down, and it's a fair space for children to be in. So I'm really hoping to be able to change that. I know it's going to take time, because the difference is, a friend of mine pointed this out. She said, in India, most grandparents, when it comes to grandchildren who are fair, they're very partial. Who are on the darker side, they sort of give them carrot juice and like this, put like sandalwood, try and make them fairer. More from a concern point of view of they don't want, the kids to be made fun of. They want the kids to feel good about themselves, and, it goes on. But if it's an American, like a Black family, okay, most of the Black grandmas have so much confidence about themselves, right?
Yeah.
They think they're beautiful. They tell their children they're beautiful. They tell their grandchildren they're beautiful. And there's that constant affirming of, you are great the way you are. So there's a huge difference between, what's being told to children. So, which is why you come across so many Black people that are so confident about the way they look, no matter what their size.
Yeah.
When you go to Africa, it's a whole different ballgame, because there's so many shades of brown, so many different shapes, and they're all so confident of themselves. So it's really what's being told to them from the time they're children. And it's something that, we can change. I think our generation can definitely do something about it. It might take us a little longer, but we're still getting there. I mean,
absolutely. I mean, the very fact that we have products in the market, that we have tools and resources that parents can use to have these conversations, I think is a big step in the right direction. I mean, I didn't have a brown doll growing up, and I didn't have books that I could, my mom could use to talk to me about things like this. So I think that in itself is a big step in the right direction. And on that note, for those of you who are watching, we have tied up with Sunana for a fabulous giveaway. We have our Colors of India book, as well as your pick of one of the 4 dolls from
any doll that you. Yes.
Any doll. So literally, you can actually tell your little one to go to their website and choose which doll they would like to bring home for Christmas, right? And that's giveaways live right now. It ends at 8 a.m. tomorrow morning, India time. So please, you know what to do. Follow us, follow Wild Little Society, tag us. Every comment is an entry, right? So make sure that you fill up our pages, and we hope one of you lucky people get to enjoy both the book and the doll for Christmas this year.
We've already got a few people, who are very excited about the gift.
Yes.
That's really, really excited, to be honest.
Yeah. And so, I mean, we can't wait. We can't wait for you to have this special experience. And on that note, thank you so much, Sunana, for joining us. It's been an absolutely lovely conversation. I think that we could talk about this forever.
Yes.
And we probably should.
Yes.
It is a conversation worth having. And I'm 100% sure that we're going to keep doing things like this and spreading the word more. And, we absolutely love what you're doing at Wild Little Society. It's kind of fits right into our heart. So
no, but that being said, I can't wait to pick up your book as well.
Yeah.
Because I would love for my son to, have this book. And, it's such a simple concept of a crow flying around. And in India, you see a crow everywhere.
Yes.
Right. So it's I think he's familiar with what a crow looks like. And then with the beautiful illustrations you've got, I mean, it's perfect.
Great.
So I should pick up soon.
All right. Thank you so much, Sunana.
Thanks.
This was lovely chatting.
You a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Same here.
Bye, everybody. Bye.